All right, in this video, we're going to look at circles. Some of these terms that you might have seen before. However, I think that a pretty large majority of these terms you've never seen, so make sure that you're taking good notes on these. We will cover these again later on in the year. This is actually going to be the last unit that we cover for this school year. Um, in May, we'll revisit circles and go a little bit more into depth on what circles are and on these different parts of circles. All right, so a circle. It's the set of all points a given distance from a given point. Okay, it's a set of all points. That given distance that was in this previous statement is called the radius, and the given point is the center. So, for example, I give you a circle. The actual circle, this black circle here, is the set of all points that is a set distance from the center. Okay, and that set distance would be our radius, and that is going to be our center. So notice, let me move this out of the way here. So notice that point here, that capital letter next to it, that point is how we're going to name it. So whenever we would name our circle, we would simply just name it circle. Now, I want you to put a little dot in the center like that, just so that we know it's not an O or a 0 or something like that. And then just the letter C. Okay, so circle C. You could also write the word circle and then put the center point next to it. That's fine. But whenever we name circles, you have to go with that center point. All right, next term is called a chord. This one you might not have seen before. I know it looks like chord, but that's not how it's pronounced. It's pronounced chord. And it's just a line segment whose endpoints lie on the circle. Okay, so for example, all of these are chords. Segment AC, segment FD, segment EB. So our chords in this figure would be AC, FD, and EB. Now, these are segments, so I do need to put the little bar over them. Let me do that right now. Okay, because they are segments, so we can't get those confused with anything else. And these are figures that they cannot be lines. If they end up being lines, they're called something else, and we'll get to that shortly. All right, next term is the diameter. And then the diameter, it's just a special type of chord. It's a chord that passes through the center, and it's also the longest possible chord that you could have in a circle. So our diameters are ZY and WX. And again, they're segments, so I do need to put a little bar over them, because I do want to name them correctly. Okay, so that's our diameter. Next figure that we'll talk about is a tangent. And you'll talk about tangents throughout math. For us this year, a tangent is just a line that intersects a circle only once. And that point that it intersects a circle is called the point of tangency. You'll talk about it again in pre-calc, calculus, algebra 2, as far as lines that are tangent to quadratics or lines that are tangent to any type of a curve, a cubic function, quartic function, whatever. But you will see tangents throughout math. Okay, and then that point of tangency again is where the line touches. Now, a tangent does have to be a line. Okay, sometimes we might represent it with a segment because there's some properties that we'll talk about. Again, like I said, when we get to that in May, we might represent it as a segment, but a tangent by definition has to be a line. So our two tangent lines are FE. Oops, let me move that over here. Are FE and GH. And they're lines, so I do need my arrows on both sides. I don't really have a good one up there, so let me just draw it in. Okay, they're lines. And finally, our points of tangency would be G and F, our 2 points of tangency. A secant. Well, if you look at a secant, it ought to look awfully familiar to a chord. The difference between a chord and a secant is that a secant is a line, while a chord is a segment. Okay, so a secant is a line that intersects the circle in two places. Now with a tangent line, we have a point of tangency. There is no point of sequency. That doesn't exist. But that secant line, very, very similar to a chord. If we were only looking at just the segment AB, it'd be a chord. But line AB is a secant. So when I would name that, it would be line AB and line DC. And I need to use the correct symbols here. There's one arrow. There's another one. And then we'll do the same thing for DC. Okay, so those are our two secant lines. All right, now some other little terms here. Congruent circles are just circles that have the same radius. And concentric circles are circles that share the same center. They just have different radii. And these also have to be coplanar. Okay, so you can think of a bullseye as a great example of what concentric circles are. All right, now an arc, another part of a circle. Now all those lines, they just go through the circle. An arc is actually part of the circle. It's a continuous portion of a circle between 2 points. So for example, this arc, see how it fits right there with the circle, or about as good as I can get it here. It fits with that. That arc would be just part of that circle. Okay, so whenever I would name the arc, oops, grab the wrong thing here. That's fine. I'll just move this instead. Okay, so that AB would be part of the circle. Now, whenever I want to name an arc, depends on the type of arc, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to name an arc using 2 or 3 points. So one arc, I'll name the first one there, AB or CE. Are my two arcs, so CE and AB. And the symbol that I'm going to use, an arc is part of a circle, so it's curved, so our symbol is going to be a little curve. Okay, it's not a straight line, so it's not going to be a line. It's not a segment, so it's not going to be a line. It's a curve, so it should look like a little curve there. I know there are 3 types of arcs that we're going to talk about, and the first one is a semicircle. A semicircle is a half of a circle. Its the endpoints are on the diameter of the circle, and its measure is 180 degrees. Now, with a semicircle, we can name this 2 different ways. I could name it, and I'll name the pink one first. I can name it arc ADC, or I could say arc AC. Now, let me talk just briefly about those. Definitely make sure that you make a little note, make something there in your notes about the distinguishment between these two. If I say arc ADC, that means it's arc in pink. If I were to name it as arc AC, it could be either one. So while AC is a way that you can name a semicircle, it's not very specific. We don't know which half we're talking about. So if you want to be more specific, you would need to take a 3rd point and put that in the name. While either one's acceptable, this first way is the better and more specific way to do it. All right, so that's when it's exactly equal to 180 degrees. Next is a minor arc, and a minor arc is less than 180 degrees. It's obviously smaller than a semicircle. Whenever we name a minor arc, we only need to use 2 points. So in this case, the one in pink would be arc AC, and I would need to put my little curve over it there, well, arc symbol. So it'd be arc AC. I'm sorry, arc AC is the one in black. The one in pink is arc AD. And let me draw that little symbol there. Okay. So arc AD is the one in pink. Arc AC is the one in black. And it's very similar. A minor arc is very similar to a segment, except that it's part of a circle. So you can kind of think of it that way with the notation, with the naming. All right, now on a major arc. A major arc is an arc that's greater than 180 degrees. And we cannot name this using 2 points. So for example, if I wanted to name this arc in pink, I could name it arc CDB, or I could say arc CAB, or BAD, I'm sorry, or BAC, or BDC. Okay, so I can name that arc 4 ways. And I go and while I'm putting these on, let me talk a little bit about the specifics of that. Whenever I name an arc, a major arc, I need 3 points. Okay, because if I only use 2 points, then I would actually be naming the minor arc. So if I just said arc BC, it would be the small arc here. That's why I need a 3rd point, so that it lets us know that we're talking about the big arc. And I can use either A or D, doesn't matter. B and C could be first or last, doesn't matter. Okay, but in order to name a major arc, you need 3 points on that arc. All right, a central angle is an angle that's formed by 2 radii. Okay, it's an angle with its vertex at the center and the sides are radii. And here's a big thing about a central angle. Okay, the most important part here is that the central angle is equal. I don't know why it does that sometimes. The central angle is equal to its arc. Okay, the central angle is equal to its arc. And we don't really need this notation here. But that central angle, we would name it just like we would any other angle, angle AOD, and we can say that it equals 90 degrees. And this minor arc would be arc AD. All right, last thing, I want you to do this at home. Hopefully I don't have any computer problems on Monday, and I'd like to get some examples up to the board, or some people to create some examples of these. And I want you to think about these things a little bit. This is something that I just want to end you with. You're going to use your protractor and your compass. I want you to create an arc that's 45 degrees, and I want you to create an arc that's 100 degrees. Okay, remember that arc is just part of a circle, so you're going to use that compass to help you draw that arc. And the protractor you use to help you measure an angle. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about this when we get into class, and we'll talk about some differences and similarities between how you would do these two things. And that's it for this video.